Hello students, Mr. Sims here, and just trying to get the correct page. We are on page 21, and the lesson today is finding the slope of a line and using a formula. So one of the most basic facts about lines is that through any 2 points, there can only be a single line drawn. So if you need 2 points to determine a line. All right, so first exercise. Given the points A, 2, 3, and B, 8, 6, do the following. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to plot the 2 points on the graph. So we're going to do A at 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, put a dot. And B is 8, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you're going to take your ruler and draw a straight line through the points. And arrows on both ends. Arrow there, arrow there. Okay. All right, plot other points with integer coordinates that lie on the line you drew. And depending on how well you drew that line, we're referring to these other, what I refer to as nice crossing points. And obviously a lot of this can depend on how you draw the line. So first thing would be is find the slope of this line. Well, if we use the slope as this rise over run idea, then you can start with, let's go back to the original points. This was point A, this was point B. So even without putting in these extra points, you're going up and to the right. So you're going up 1, 2, 3, to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which simplifies down to 1 over 2. Okay, and then write the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b form. Y equals 1 over 2x. And then what you have to do is you have to determine what the y-intercept is, because it's not given to you directly, but if you drew the line good enough, you can see that the line crosses the y-axis at positive 2. So the equation would be 1/2 x plus 2. And that's one way to write the equation of the line given some points. Put it on a graph, go from there. All right, now, we can also just calculate the slope of the line without a graph by just knowing the 2 points that fall on the line. So exercise 2, let's consider the original 2 points in exercise number 1. A is 2 and 3, B is 8 and 6. And what change occurs in x from A to B? So when we look at the coordinates, and this is x and y, and when we look at the coordinates of x, it went from 2 to 8. So it went up 6. Look at the same thing in the y's. It went from 3 to 6, which is a plus 3. All right. Now, what calculations could you use to find the changes in those? To find change is the difference. Difference is subtraction. Now, with these, they're pretty simple. 2 to 8 is 6. 3 to 6 is 3. But believe me, it's not always quite that simple with positive numbers. So the difference, you subtract the 2. So you could do 8 minus 2 to get the x, and you can do 6 minus 3 to get the y. So the change in y over the change in x would be this 3 over 6, which would still become 1 over 2. And you shouldn't be surprised if we got the same slope. All right, so what happens when you can't put it on a graph? So sometimes you might get numbers that are too big to put on a graph. And then, of course, obviously, we have to consider what happens when you start doing this with positive and negative numbers. And then, eventually maybe even fractions and decimals. So there is a formula that we can use to determine the slope of a line. Right? And the formula is related, so a line passing through the points x1, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Okay, here's what this basically means. The 1s represent the first coordinate, the 2s represent the second coordinate. So here's all the things that we refer to as slope. The slope is m, rise over run, delta y over delta x. here is a formula. And what this basically means is you take the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. And that's what that means. All right, but there is something that I would show you of. So in the third exercise, consider a line that passes through the points -3, 2, and 5, 8. Okay? Plot the points, draw a straight line through them. All right, that's not where I want the focus of this lesson to be, because I know you can plot 2 points and put the line through. What I want to focus on is calculating the slope using the formula. Now, here's the thing. With the formulas, you have to, if you're going to use this formula, you have to remember it. Okay, it's not something that's provided. But if you can remember the gist of it, it's still got this y over x idea. Okay, and you're subtracting the y's and you're subtracting the x's. And I know it says do the second, then the first, but I'm going to show you how this works. So y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Sometimes what I like to do is every time I use a formula, I'm going to write it down because it's going to help me remember it. And there's going to be a lot of these types of formulas throughout math that you're going to have to be able to know, and not necessarily memorize, but at least know how they work. All right, so I'm going to rewrite these points down here so they're a little bit closer. -3, 2, and 5, 8. All right, and one thing good habit to get into is labeling your x's and your y's. Okay, so we're going to do the second y minus the first y. 8 minus 2. And then we're going to do the second x minus the first x. 5 minus -3. And you would have to include the minus negative. All right, so across the top, you got 8 minus 2, which is 6. Across the bottom, 5 minus -3. Remember, that's the same as adding 3. So this would be 8. And we can reduce this as 6 over 8. Divide the 2 out of each one, we get 3 over 4. And you can confirm that by graphing the line there as well. All right, let's take a look at a couple more. This is definitely something that we should be able to calculate the slope of a line given any 2 points that lie in the line. Get some practice, this is a skill, because this is something that you will use frequently. And in this exercise, I'm going to model 2, and I'm going to have you pause and then try 2 on your own. But the thing you have to be careful of is the positive and negative values. Okay, so y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, x and y above this one, x and y above this one. So I'm going to take, now what I've seen is you have to, 12, you have to match up the y's, because I've seen students do mixed match the x's and y's. So the y's stick with y's. 12 minus 2 over 7 minus 3. 12 minus 2 being 10, 7 minus 3 being 4. And whenever you can simplify, you go ahead and do so. So divided 2 out of each one, this is 5 over 2. And I'll do the one below it. Okay. Remember, it's y2 minus y1. Right? So, this is definitely a good habit to get into, labeling x's and y's above. So I'm going to go -2 minus 2 over 6 minus -6. Very careful here with your negatives. -2 minus 2. I borrow 2 more, that's -4. 6 minus -6, that is not equal to 0 because the double negative really makes that a plus, so you get 12. -4/12, a 4 goes into both. A 4 goes into 4 once, and into 12 3 times, giving me a -1/3 slope. So this is going to conclude the lesson of the day. Before we go on to the assignment, I want you to go ahead and try these 2 problems on your own, and you can check in with me. All right. So for slope of a line, this is Mr.